Your cybersecurity solution is here. Introducing Pentester's Advanced Cybersecurity Suite. Ready for peace of mind? Try it for free. No credit card required. Pentester.com.
Hello, everybody. My name is Anthony Ruggiano Jr. I want to welcome everybody to Reform Gangsters. If you like my content, please hit the subscribe button and ring the bell. Don't forget about my Patreon. A lot of new content on there and a lot of new content to come. I'm lining up some interviews with Michael Gibb, rock royalty, the son of Barry Gibb of the Bee Gees, and Michael Franzese, the son of Sonny Franzese. And I'm hoping also to get Sammy the Bull on at some point. So don't forget about my Patreon membership start at $1. And don't forget about my store. I got a lot of merch on there, hats, mugs, shirts. Check it out. Christmas is coming. Maybe you want to buy something for you or someone else. So check that out. So today I'm going to talk about mob weddings. And the reason why I'm going to talk about mob weddings because my first wedding to my wife, Alice, who was actually the great niece of Harry Happy Mayoni, who was an actual member of Murder, Inc. So she sort of comes from mob royalty also, and we got married in 1977 on October 2nd, 47 years ago. So it just got me thinking about mob weddings. And so I'm going to start out, I think, with the first mob wedding I ever attended. I was about 20 years old, and I believe it was Neil's stepdaughter to Ernest, but it was at the Waldorf Astoria. It was in the very, very early 70s. And it was at the Waldorf Astoria. And I went with my Fat Andy, Tony Lee, a whole bunch of us went. And we went to the Waldorf Astoria, and it was a huge affair. And it was funny because, I mean, that's the first time I met a lot of people from other mob families. And it was very festive. The food was great. It was in the Waldorf Astoria. But so what happened was, I'm in there, and a lot of the wise guys' kids were there because the groom knew a lot of the kids of wise guys. So I was there. Neil's two kids were there. Buddy and Tony was there. This guy Eddie Dawes, he was another wise guy. His son was Gregory was there. His other brother Guido Dawes, his two sons were there. Guido Jr. and Eddie, they were there. I was there. Just a lot of wise guys' kids were there, and we were all around. It's crazy because we were like all around the same age. So now here we all are at this mob wedding. You got like bosses there, under bosses. I mean, because now it's a relative of Neil, so you got like bosses there. You know, Carlo Gambino wasn't there. He wasn't there. I don't know why he wasn't there, because if he was there, I would have gotten introduced to him, but he wasn't there. Even though Neil was his underboss at the time, and he was still alive, but he was getting old then, because this was around 73, like that, 73, the beginning of 74. So all these big wise guys are there, and now all the kids are there, right? So I'm sitting there, and Buddy, I think it was Buddy comes up to me and he goes, come on, come with me, right? And I go with him, and I go, where are we going? He goes, come on, we got a suite upstairs. I go up to this, so we get in the elevator. We go up a couple of floors, we get out, and he takes me into this suite. I walk into this suite, and most of the wise guys' kids are in the suite. The daughters, the sons, and they got champagne, a big pile of Coke, and they're like partying up there. And I was like a little surprised, right? But of course, I joined right in. I didn't hesitate. I jumped right in, But it was like, so here we are here. All these wise guys are downstairs at this wedding, and all the kids are up in the suite partying. It's crazy. And then we were all lit up, and we all went. Then we had to go back down at some point, and we all went back down. But so that was my first experience, my first mob wedding. It was crazy, and I got pretty close to all of them too. We were pretty tight. All the wise guys' kids back then. Not all of us were in the street yet. I mean, I was in the street at the time. Buddy was in the street at the time. Eddie, Guido Dolls' two sons, they were legitimate guys. They were bartenders and club managers. Eddie was good friends with Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis actually worked for him at a club because Bruce Willis was a bartender back then before he became Bruce Willis. And him and Eddie were tight. Actually, when Bruce Willis got the part for that show, Moonlighting, Eddie, when he moved to LA, Eddie Dolls actually gave him his going away party at this club called the Rhinos. I forgot. It was a club that Eddie managed that Bruce Willis was the bartender in. When he got the part for that show, he was actually working for Eddie. So Eddie gave him his going away party. And so they were in the street. Gregory, Eddie Dolls' son, he was in the street. He started dabbling in drugs. He actually got murdered. He got gunned down in front of his house in downtown Manhattan after his father died. Guido, the father, he actually got murdered. He got shot in a parking lot by some Greek guy that he had an argument with. That he got murdered. Buddy died. He ran away, Buddy, and died of drug addiction. Gregory got murdered. So a lot of them had tragic endings, but back then we were young, we were stupid, we had a good time. Getting into my wedding, I spoke to it a lot of times. I got married in October '77. I had 1,000 people there. It was a crazy affair. It was the whole building. It was in the Lamia in Brooklyn. I had all 3 floors. All 5 families were represented. Russell Bufalino from The Irishman, the part that Joe Pesci played, he was actually the first guest to arrive with his crew. They pulled up in a limousine. He was there because he was good friends with Fat Andy and Tony Lee. So he was there. He was the first person to come. That's when I actually met Paul Castellano. I was on the dance floor, and my father came and got me and my wife, and he took me over to this table. And there was one table in the place that was one long table because Paul came with all the captains. And that night I met Paul for the first time, and I met a lot of captains that I never met because the only captains up to that point that I met were the ones that would come to the Raven Night, or we would run into one of them in a nightclub or a restaurant. But there was a lot of captains in the Gambino family back then, and they were all at my wedding, and I met all of them. I met ones I never met before, and ones I knew. They were all sitting with Paul, so that was I met them. All 5 families were represented. And I was going around getting introduced to everybody. And it's funny because the books had just gotten open. The books were only open a short period of time, and a lot of freshly made guys were at my wedding, and they were getting introduced to each other. And that was another scene that because I knew what was going on, and it was a lot of introductions in like the fire exit and on the floor, at the tables, and I knew who had just gotten straightened out, and a lot of people were getting introduced to each other as maid members at my wedding. So that was cool. Actually, it was in 1977. I actually got, when we opened up all the envelopes, I actually got over $50,000 in cash and gifts, which was back then. Today, that's like $250,000 probably. I would say maybe more. Who knows? $50,000 in cash was a lot of money in 1977. And Paul Castellano gave me $500. I remember that. Arnel wasn't at my wedding. He was in jail, I believe. But him and Joe the Cat, their wedding present was cash, and they gave me a free trip to Las Vegas for my honeymoon. They sent me to Las Vegas for my honeymoon. I had a suite at Caesar's Palace. That's when the mob ran Vegas in the 70s. I had a credit line of, I think, $5,000 at Caesar's Palace, which I used up shooting dice at 23. Yeah. So that was my wedding gift from the underboss of the Gambino family. The next probably best, I went to so many mob weddings, but only some of them were just like a regular wedding. Mine wasn't like a regular wedding because of the amount of people we had, and it was on all 3 floors, and it was just a different kind of an affair. And the first wedding I went to, of course, in the Waldorf, because it was my first wedding. But the next wedding that sticks out to me is one I have to talk about, is Victoria Gotti's wedding John wasn't the boss yet when she got married. I believe he might have just been made captain. But that was another great wedding, very crowded. The food was phenomenal. I mean, they had a cold seafood just thing. I remember that. I mean, all these years later, you walked in lobster tails and shrimps, everything on ice, clams. I mean, that really stuck out to me. And the entertainment, she looked beautiful. John came over and kissed us hello. He loved my wife Alice. I mean, he loved my family, my mother, my wife Alice. I mean, he came over, he hugged us and kissed us, and the entertainment was like, so Jay Black and the Americans were there. He sang. Connie Francis was there. For those, Connie Francis actually came over to me and was hanging out with me, and my wife got jealous. Yeah, Alice got jealous. She said, "Is she hitting on you?" I said, "No, what are you, crazy?" So the entertainment was great. The place was crowded. Everybody looked beautiful. And that, though, mob weddings were just very festive weddings. I mean, it was crazy. Here's all these killers and drug dealers, and everybody's, with their families dancing and laughing and eating. And that was a really good wedding. That was another good wedding that stuck out to me. And Angel Gotti's wedding, I'll end with this, is kind of funny because my wedding in 77 was talked about forever. I mean, it was just a special event because it was so different than every wedding. We had all 3 floors in the catering place in the Lamia. I mean, 1,000 people. When everybody left, they got a bag of bagels because it was on a Saturday. So Sunday morning, when everybody was leaving, they got a bag of bagels and a Sunday newspaper. And back then, the Sunday newspaper was this thick. If everybody remembers, back in the 70s, the Sunday newspaper had the comedy, it was this thick. And everybody got a bag of bagels and a Sunday daily news when they left. She kind of copied our wedding because she got married in the Lamia. She had all 3 floors, and her wedding was nice too. It wasn't as good as mine, but it was nice too. Her wedding was good. So those are the weddings that really stand out. But mob weddings were was nice events. They were really good events. We really enjoyed each other's company at the weddings, and then the next day it was back to business. Back to killing each other and robbing each other. Yeah, they came to my wedding. They were all at my wedding. Paulie Ravi was at my wedding. His brother Babe was at my wedding. I don't know if Tommy DeSimone, he probably was at my wedding. I mean, there was so many people there. But Paulie was there for sure. His brother Babe was there for sure. Who else? Bruno Fasciola was there for sure. Henry Hill definitely wasn't there. He wasn't getting it. My father didn't like him, so he definitely didn't get invited. So I'm going to look at this little video of the Goodfellas movie where, at Henry's wedding. So this is a Jewish affair, they're breaking the glass. I went to a lot of those mob weddings too. All beautiful catering. The cake, they're showing the cake. My cake, that with my wedding in 77, the cake was displayed in front of the door. When you walked in, you saw the cake, and people actually thought it was marble, and they had to put somebody there to stand there because people were sticking their finger on it to see if it was real. So the owner, Frankie Panisi, had one of the waiters stand by the cake so nobody would touch it. That's how beautiful the cake was. And it's crazy because the first scene in this movie is the cake. There's the tables with all the wise guys. Yeah, this is exactly with their wives. No girlfriends came to the weddings, only wives. They're talking business. Yeah, it's right on the money. Yeah, just telling the waiter, all the waiters made money. Bring us. They were getting bottles of whiskey from the waiters, and yeah, exactly. There's his mother. There's Murray the Wig, my man Murray the Wig. It's exactly like the mob weddings. They have it down to the T. Yeah, see?
The first time I was introduced to all of them at once, it was crazy. Paulie and his brothers had lots of sons and nephews. Yeah. And almost all of them were named Peter or Paul.
That's right on the money. And that's when, you meet you know, that's the first time I met everybody. Like I met captains from other families and wise guys and associates from other families. So how we invited everybody to the wedding was, so we didn't invite everybody individually. So we had all these invitations, and my father and Tony Lee went to all the families with shopping bag full of invitations and just dropped them off and let the underboss or the captains come with who they wanted to come with. So he didn't invite every soldier or every associate. He invited all the higher echelon, the underboss, the boss, the captains, and he let them come with who they want. So we didn't even really know who was coming. Like we just knew the basics. And he went all over the city dropping off shopping bags with invitations in them. And like, that's the scene, but that's a woman saying, it's the first time I met everybody. And that's how it was for me. It was the first time I actually met almost a lot of people. But that's right on the money. All right. I want to thank everybody for tuning in to Reform Gangsters. Don't forget, if you like my content, please hit the subscribe button and ring the bell. Don't forget to check out my Patreon. Like I said earlier, a lot of new content, a lot of content on the way. Some really great interviews coming up. I'm lining them up right now as we speak with Michael Gibb, the son of Barry Gibb, rock royalty from the Bee Gees, Michael Franzese, mob royalty. And I'm trying also to get Sammy the Bull to come on for a little while. So that's all coming in the future. And don't forget to check out my store. I got some really nice stuff, T-shirts, mugs, hats. Check it out. Christmas is coming. So enjoy.